So after that race in Koto where we saw some decent action, Max Verstappen filling our heads with delusion, I, aquatic-based bird who is a Ferrari fan, am of course followed for the delusion. Do I think Max can win the title? I still think no, but I would not be surprised if he does, considering McLaren loves to show us how much they suck. So let's say Max does win the title. I ask a simple question: where would he rank all time? Because let's really sit and think about Max's accomplishments. Youngest driver ever at 17 years old, youngest race winner and podium finisher ever at 18 years old, racks up victories for 4 years totaling up to 10 wins by 2021, and then in that year, he finally gets graced with a car to win the title, also largely helped by Mercedes sucking balls at first, and what does he do? He wins the damn title with zero controversy whatsoever. Then in 2022, he is on the back foot with Red Bull considering his car is blowing up more than a BMW, but he transfers that curse to his wasn't meant to be Charles Leclerc and is able to dominantly win that year's title before the fateful 2023. As we know, Max was champion yet again, but the way he did it was absolutely ridiculous. There are so many records set that year, so here, read them if you want, because this is crazy. But to summarize, 19 wins that season along with 10 in a row, both new records. And 2024 seemed to maybe host the same results, but McLaren entered the arena. In the background, McLaren have slowly been building up their engineering team and steadily making improvements. And in Miami, they debut a car that is not only capable of being on par with Red Bull, but can also beat Max. Unfortunately, however, they are stuck with Lando Norris as their contender and are also like 120 points back. So ultimately, Max still won the title with relative ease, but this seemed to be the end. Throughout 2024, Red Bull have completely sunk since they lost their best minds and their car was dropping like a stone. And 2025 seemed to truly be the end since the McLaren team have been winning the most races, and while Max has won a couple, it's nowhere near good enough for a title charge. Still, 4 titles in a row and 60-some wins, that is insanity, and many would already consider Max top 10, if not top 5 of all time. The only thing that could possibly shoot him higher is if he has another period of dominance, or if he could somehow make a 100-point deficit in the standings this year and win 5 titles in a row, but that'll never happen. Oh wait. Post-summer break, he gets second in the Dutch Grand Prix, wins the Italian GP, wins the Azerbaijan GP, second in Singapore, wins the US GP, and is looking set for at least another podium in Mexico. In just 5 Grand Prix weekends, Max went from 102 points back from first to 40 points from first with 5 to go. At this rate, Max will run away with the title unless McLaren can do anything about it. So now, I want to sit down with you all, a Socratic seminar if you will. If Max wins this year's title, where does that put him all time? Because no one in history has ever made up a points deficit that big to still win the title. So if Max does it, how would he rank all time? And instead of me making a however long video discussing my reasoning, I decided to change things up a bit by asking you, the community, about it. I asked my Discord server, YouTube community, along with my Twitter even, the same question, and we're going to compare answers and come to a general consensus on what the community thinks of this, and then I'll give my opinion. Go join the Discord to be cool, and subscribe if you're new to also be cool. So enough yapping, and let's get to quacking.
A good weather for a race, but especially for a duck.
So how this is going to work is I'm going to list off some answers from the community and give my take on them and or elaborate on them further. So let us begin with the Discord community since they are more superior to everybody else. Firstly, this guy simply says top 2 and not number 2. This will be a trend. Obviously, this implies Max will be the best of all time, and let's really think about this. The general consensus is that Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, and Ayrton Senna are the GOATs of F1, or one of them is the GOAT of F1. Lewis Hamilton, of course, as we know, is a 7-time world champion, or an 8 depending on if you're a crybaby who hasn't moved on, along with having 105 wins and 104 poles. Of course, this number could still rise considering he is still driving, but also considering how he's in a Ferrari, I wouldn't have much hope, which is a wild thing to say since just 20 years ago, Ferrari was the team with the Michael Schumacher. Schumacher is also a 7-time world champion with 91 wins and 68 pole positions. Michael, before Lewis came along, was considered to be the definitive GOAT of F1 since no one had 7 titles before him. The closest was Fangio with 5, but he also won them in the 50s when plumbers and farmers were the main occupation of the drivers. So Michael was seen as the best since no one drove like him, no one was as fast as him, and no one had his mastery of the Formula 1 car. But I did mention 3 names, and this one is a bit of an odd pick, but some people choose him regardless, and that is of course Ayrton Senna. Senna is an iconic name for good reason, and that's because you will never find a driver with such precision and mastery behind the wheel. It was like watching a wizard drive the car, and even though he only has 3 titles and 40-something wins, that's because, as we know, he unfortunately passed away in that crash in Imola, so we will never know how far his career could have went. So these 3 names are argued to be the best of all time statistically, first to do it, and magic. How on earth does Max compare to them? Well, with Lewis, it's simple considering we have seen them fight already and Max came out on top, but this doesn't mean he is better than Lewis. They're equal in my eyes in terms of skill, and Max, to me, has yet to fully surpass Lewis in terms of peak talent, which, keep in mind, this is like so unbelievably high, so if you take that as a diss, I have no clue what to say to you. When it comes to Max and Michael, both drivers are extremely aggressive behind the wheel and are not afraid to crash if it means they could get a position out of it. They also have the ability to just completely disappear out front and make the entire grid look like literal amateurs. And Michael was doing this in a grid with drivers like Raikkonen, Alonso, Montoya, Hakkinen, Hale, you get the idea. And Max is doing this with drivers like Leclerc, Russell, Hamilton, but he is also past his best years. Alonso, funnily enough, still. Norris when he isn't bottling. Basically, both are doing it against stacked grids. So you know what I'm thinking? This guy may have a point. Obviously, Max is a wizard behind the car just like Senna, especially in the rain, since watching Max drive in the rain is like having a grip enhancement mod in the F1 game. It's unexplainable at times. So my verdict with this statement is that I don't think he is the GOAT yet, but he's already able to compare to them and is 100% the top 5, perhaps even the top 3, and it's not a big gap between all of them. Whew, that was a long explanation, but that's because so many of you said he was the GOAT or in the top 3, so instead of highlighting all of these and explaining it again, just refer back to this segment to understand the reasoning. But next up, and holy words, it basically boils down to, is Max really strong this year, or is it Piastri and Norris sucking balls more? He also states how if Leclerc, Russell, or even Alonso were in the McLaren, they would have been world champions with relative ease, and how Max would also be in the top 3 of the drivers of all time. We already explained the top 3 things, so blah 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 blah. I'm really interested on the first point because that is extremely important. If this was being done against a Leclerc or Russell like he says, Max would be like the best driver ever by a long shot, since when Charles has a car that is capable of not breaking into pieces randomly and George has a car that is set on being fast only, they don't bottle, they win. And then you compare it to how Lando and Oscar randomly crash or bottle or spin in the outright fastest car, then it does make you wonder, is Max just picking up their pieces, or is he doing this on genuine merit? Because in Zandvoort, Lando had an engine failure, Monza, McLaren were too busy fucking up their strategy to try and catch up to Max, and Baku, Oscar crashed and Lando decided to settle down at 7th. In Singapore, the McLaren's crash, and in Coda, Lando parked up behind Charles again while Pastry was absolutely nowhere. It's easy to say Max is so dominant and winning when McLaren are doing stupid shit like this. So if Max does win, how much of it is McLaren's fault, and would it outweigh what Max did? Some questions to ponder about while you goon. Finally, because I've spent way too long on Discord, plus they were way too busy arguing and stating, this person simply says he will be the greatest of my time and no doubt in the debate with Schumacher and Senna. Yeah, now for what YouTube thinks, and since we have so many answers, this portion will be shorter and more responses will be highlighted. So firstly, we have responses again like, he would be top 3, he would be the GOAT, best of all time really. It's like a huge amount of people saying this, but let's read them further. If he wins the championship, it would be the greatest comeback in F1 history, and you know, I can't think of another one as good. Yes, there are years like 2010 or 2012 where Vettel locked in the second half of the year as well and won, and you could probably argue it is better because he was doing it against Alonso and not Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, alleged championship level drivers, but 100 points, man. Even now with people saying it's gonna happen, 40 points in 5 races and 2 sprints is still very tight, and we truly won't know until the final race. So if Max does it, I say yeah, it would be the greatest comeback, but then there is also the consideration of less races in the era of Vettel, so let me know what you guys think. But moving on, this person says Max has already cemented himself as one of the greats, and even if he doesn't win, his legacy is secure and also shows how much F1 is about the balance of driver and machinery. I think this is a great point, since like they say, even if Max doesn't win, I mean, the fact he made it this far, it does cement him as one of the best to ever do it. And I really like the second bit of the statement about the importance of driver and machine working together. When Max has a car that he loves and that he could drive the wheels off of, he disappears out front, and it's like if the car is fused with his body. Compare that to how the McLaren drivers are, since they have an almighty car, but the drivers, they just can't handle all of that. So sometimes they could do good, but often you get the impression they should have done more if they really are these amazing drivers. They are not bad drivers by any means, but let's be real, guys. Lando performed way better when he was in the midfield, and Pastry is simply too inexperienced to come to a full complete verdict about him. So moving on, this person says he would be fourth behind Schumacher, Hamilton, and Prost. Their reasoning is that the two seven-time champs are ahead, and Prost is ahead because he beat or tied against the many great drivers of his time in equal machinery, which, yeah, you know how much disrespect Prost gets? 4 titles and 51 wins against guys like Lauda, Senna, Mansell, Piquet. I mean, that's no easy feat. However, I would have to disagree with Max's placement. We already explained how Max talent-wise is comparable to the 7-time champs, and while what Prost did was amazing, Piquet was often carried by a reliable engine, and Mansell was farming at Williams for a long while, which was easily his best team. Regardless, even a less than favorable answer still places Max unbelievably high, so there is that to consider. Finally, and yes, finally, because my god, there are so many answers saying he's top 3 or the best, this person says he is one of the world's top drivers for sure, but we shouldn't forget that he has a fighting chance now because the Red Bull has improved, and if this has never happened, he wouldn't be fighting for the title right now. This is an extremely valid point since so many people downplay how good his car is right now. Beginning of the season, yeah, that shit stunk, but even in a race like Imola or Canada, he had a very fast car that could contend for the win, and obviously now he has a very fast car, the fastest it's been. So I don't want to see no Verstappen won the title in the second, third, or fourth fastest car nonsense. The car he has right now is equal with McLaren or barely slower than it or barely faster than it. This shouldn't be forgotten, so let's not Alonso 2012 this situation. But finally, we have the friendliest place on the internet now, Twitter. I tweeted the same question out a bit after the race, and this is what inspired this video. Also, I imagine this has responses from people who don't follow the channel, so I'm hoping for more different answers. So firstly, this guy simply says, the greatest of all time, with a picture of a statement from JB saying that Max is probably the best to have ever raced in an F1 car. God damn it. Guys, I am so sorry. I scourged through the quote tweets and the replies to the original tweet. Guys, they all say he's either top 3 or one of the best or the best, but there are some gems. This person, for example, doesn't know if he is top 3 because of the competition he has had to face. Of course, Max bought Lewis, but other than that, who else? Oscar and Lando really are the only ones because Checo only lasted 5 races and Charles was shot out back by Ferrari in 2022. It is a good point because you have Michael going up against guys like Hakkinen, Raikkonen, Montoya, Alonso, Lewis up against Raikkonen, Vettel, Alonso, Rosberg, Seb against guys like Alonso and Hamilton, yet we haven't seen Max truly fight an equal yet. Yes, there was Lewis, but this was a Lewis that was starting to show some rust. I do believe we need to see a proper Max v Charles fight or a Max v Russell fight, since those two, in my eyes, are the only ones who could actually mount a proper and competent fight to him. But he did also say he was unsure if he was confidently top 3, which means the thought has appeared, so there is still that consideration. But other than that, nothing. Everyone is saying he would be the GOAT or top 3 if he isn't already. The hottest takes I see are he would be top 5, and we need to think harder about this, which I wouldn't even call hot takes. Basically, everything they said are things we have already explained. So while the community seems in agreement that Max would be in the top 3 at the very least, what do I think? I've dropped little hints and bins throughout the video, so maybe you know my verdict already, but for all you Grok and ChatGPT brained people, I think Max would be top 3 if he wins a title and top 5 if he doesn't, which also means he's in my top 5 as of writing this before the season has even ended. I would have him higher, but like one of the replies said, Max truly hasn't faced his equal yet. I need to see Max v Leclerc or Max v Russell so I could truly gauge just how great he is. If he narrowly beats them, then yeah, he's like top 5 and one of the best to ever do it. If he slaps them up and beats them with relative ease in a title fight with miracle cars, guys, he could be the GOAT. Ultimately, we will never know who the GOAT is, since who knows? What if Fangio from the 50s was thrown into a car of today and wins like no one has ever seen? Or what if Lewis was in a 1970s car and wins like no one has ever seen? F1 changes so much, so it's very hard to truly classify who could be the GOAT. With football, everybody's in agreement of Messi or Ronaldo. With basketball, it's either LeBron or Jordan. With F1, however, well shit, it could be Fangio, Senna, Schumacher, Lewis, Verstappen, Prost. There are way too many names, and that's all because each driver was so great in their respective era of car. But one thing is for sure, Max is one of the all-time greats, and his name will be forever remembered regardless if he wins this year's title or not. I pray for the day Lewis fans can understand two GOATs can indeed coexist. So that was my and mostly your thoughts on Max's all-time status. This video was kind of a failure because I thought there were going to be way more answers denying Max, or at least questioning it, but nah, everyone really agrees that he is either GOAT or top 3, and I am mad because that man is wicked good. It should be illegal. Oh well, let's hope we could get him fighting against a driver like Leclerc or Russell, because Lord knows Lando and Oscar are complete frauds. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all members of the flock for their continued support, and make sure to join if you will cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you like and subscribe since it really helps me out. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.